unfortunately, there are too many people killing themselves in this country. I remember being on a bus one time and I saw a sign on the bus that said 75% of the people in the world need some kind of mental or psychiatric help. And one of the areas in which one may need some psychiatric help is when he or she has thoughts of committing suicide. And matter of fact, it has become such a problem until there's a month dedicated to suicide prevention awareness. And that just happens to be September. So I think it's very appropriate and very befitting that the Links organization has partnered with two other organizations in our community, two other businesses really, to try to bring more awareness to the problem. Matter of fact, I don't know how true it is, Miss Issei, but I read somewhere that it's the leading cause of death in the country, and I was just blown away to know that with all the murders and the car accidents, et cetera, that we have in the country, and one of the leading causes of death is suicide, which is preventable, which is self-inflicted and self-initiated. So I think it's absolutely appropriate for the Links organization to engage in an activity with the help of the Southern Center for Choice Theory and United Therapeutic Services, and we'll hear from them, to try to bring more awareness to the community as it relates to suicide, and also to make the community and individuals who may be thinking about suicide more conscientious of the fact that there is help available. So, Ms. Pat, would you introduce Ms. Pat Galloway is the chair of the committee from the Links organization?
Yes, sir. Hello.
And if you would just go ahead and kind of give us an overview and introduce your cohort there, and let's talk about why, how, and why the Links decided to become involved in this endeavor.
Well, I am Pat Galloway, and seated next to me is Trellie Williams. We are co-chairs of the Mental Health Committee of the Macon chapter of Links. We are part of Health and Human Services. And this is an area that our national organization has decided that it would be necessary for us to highlight. September, National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and later on in the year, in May, we're going to highlight Mental Health Month. Well, the Links is an organization that is 75 years old in the national and internationally, and the Macon chapter is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. I say that we are co-chairs, but Trellie Williams is a past president of our organization, and we try to address issues in the community, not just mental health, but early literacy, breast cancer, heart health, voter mobilization. We do whatever we can. We're a group that logs over 3,000 volunteer hours a year. And Mr. Habersham, you are absolutely right about those statistics. The one that really has touched my heart is that suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 14, and the third leading cause of death among people aged 15 to 24, according to the statistics that I have become familiar with. Now, our committee is trying to emphasize that we have something new. 988 is the new suicide prevention hotline. It was a regular phone number, an 800 number, which is still in use. People can still call that. But 988 is much easier for people to remember. And this will give you a mental health professional as opposed to a law enforcement person when you dial 911. So we are trying to get the word out about 988. That's one of our thrusts. And the other thing that we're doing, Ms. Trelly Williams is going to briefly explain one other item that this committee is going to do for Suicide Prevention Month.
Thank you, Ms. Galloway. Thank you, Mr. Havisham, for allowing us to participate on this panel. As Mrs. Galloway has said, introduced the idea of the fact that we now have a 988 suicide crisis line. And in the process of one of our meetings with the mental health facet, we talked at length about ways we could make sure that people were aware of this 988 number. We needed known so that people can share, especially in the community, because this 988 number is going to be responsible for a lot of lives to be saved because of this number. So what our chapter did was to write a letter. We were writing some letters, and we've chosen to write letters to our state senators, Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff. And what we want them to do on the levels where they are is to also bring awareness to their constituents that they are actively involved with. Now, it is a national hotline number, but we want to make sure that people are very aware of the number and use it. So what we're concerned about is that these two senators can really help to spread the information about the 988 number, the new code, instead of dialing the 911. And as members of our organization, what we do is we use our resources to improve the quality of life for people in our community, especially geared toward the African-American community, especially the disadvantaged members of our community. And by bringing awareness to this resource, our community can receive the most appropriate care by dialing 988 instead of 911, as I said earlier. And what we've done is initiated a writing campaign. And we started with our senators, but what we want members of our community to reach out to their churches and other organizations. And that includes wherever you are carrying letters to the businesses that you work with, beauty shop, barber shop, or whoever works on your cars. But all of us in the community can have a part in getting this information out. But we've started with our senators and with our chapter. Everybody in our chapter is being part of a letter writing campaign. So we want the community to join us in contacting as many people as we can, organizations, to be aware of 988. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that's very good. And I think that's a very good introduction. But along with 988, there would have to be other services available to the community. And luckily, and fortunately, and happily, we have two organizations joining us today on this call that specialize in services and and treatment and initiatives to try to help address not only the suicide awareness, but other kind of mental health problems. And it's a real problem. I mean, I think that even with the homicides that we're having in our community, I mean, you can attribute the need for mental health in many of the areas of our community. I'm so happy that we have organizations in our community that can not only assist the links with this 988 initiative, which I think is phenomenally important, but also other kinds of problems that are prevalent in our community. And I just wish, and I'll just, Ms. Cisse, get ready, you next. But I just really wish, and Ms. Lakeisha, you can address this too when it's your chance, because we can't let Patty in no more. Just kidding, just kidding. I really do, from the bottom of my heart, wish that people would take the same kind of position and attitude about going to see about their head and their mind as they do their body. And that's one of the problems. And I ain't Southern Center for Choice Theory, neither am I United Therapeutic Services. I just want to make that comment. And Ms. Cisse, if you would, just kind of address, how you see it and help to emphasize the awareness. And also you can address maybe some approach that the community can use and, in doing that. And I will ask you, Ms. Lakeisha, the same question when Ms. Cisse finishes.
So I'm really excited to be a part and to partner with Links around this issue of raising awareness about suicide and suicide prevention in our community. It really kind of impacts almost everything that happens in our society, though impacts the BIPOC community way more intensely than it does in other communities because people have access to resources more often than we do in our community. And access means, quality care in areas where or places where people can walk to those services that are provided by people who look like the people in the community. The other thing I'm really excited about is being a part of the Making Mental Health Matters initiative. And as a part of that, it means for me that we get to offer high quality, no cost mental health services to people anywhere in Bibb County. And they can come to us or they can do their services virtually. But back to this issue of suicide. So we know that suicide is preventable. But oftentimes what we do is we believe that a person just kind of pops up and they're suicidal, right? And so because we're familiar with the attempts to commit suicide and then the fully completed suicides. I I don't even want to almost I remembered instantly my uncle who decided he was just tired of being sick and actually took a shotgun and ended his life. But and I can just imagine that the things that people think about. But what we don't think about is that, as the World Health Organization says, there is no health without mental health.
Mm.
We focus on physical health, which is great. We got to be able to move around, but we don't think about mental health as often as we should. If we have been putting more emphasis on mental health and thinking about, the experiences that children have will lead to long-term negative consequences, we would have been doing something about it all along. Which also brings me to this other issue that the CDC tells us that some of the causes or some of the things that lead to or risk factors of suicidality or suicide attempts are the exposure to adverse childhood experiences. Now, we've all heard about ACEs. We've all heard about the ACEs. But we don't understand always, those of us who are just kind of everyday common folks. I'm a therapist, and I understand the importance of ACEs, but everybody needs to understand about the impact of adverse experiences in children's lives and what those mean. And many times it has to do with discrimination as well as those exposures to the social determinants of health. But it's really important that we start thinking about and focusing on having a mental health professional in our lives, just like we have a general practitioner or a cardiologist or anybody else for that matter. It's really important that we have somebody, a mental health professional in our lives. And it's really important that we talk about, when we talk about the prevention of suicide, that we get to a place where all of us around the dinner table are not just talking about how well things went today, but we're talking about how do you feel? How do you feel right now? What does this particular emotion feel like in your body? What is it that you can do to manage this emotion? It's important that we raise awareness around the impact of domestic violence or sexual abuse on children and how it can lead to suicidality or substance use. It's important, and I'm talking about preventing and prevention because I really am big on how we can prevent some of the mental health issues that we have in our society, particularly suicidality. But we can do that by encouraging people to talk about the things that happen, the real stuff that happens in their lives. I saw you move, so I decided to stop talking because I can talk.
Yeah, I
I
know.
can talk a lot.
Yeah, that's fine. And that lot is a lot of important information. And I just want to, before we turn it over to Miss Lakeisha, if I may call you that,
Yes,
uh, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
you are.
Thank you thank you very much. Um, so you can just piggyback and come in. I think, Pat, I think we've done a good job of delving into, the importance of 988. But and I think Ms. Cisse did a good job of incorporating, the suicide awareness and the suicide prevention with other services, because really those individuals who resort to suicide, unfortunately, and you know what? Let me tell you something. People are not honest, because I think at one point or another, we've all had suicidal thoughts.
Mhm. Yes,
You know what I'm saying? You know,
mhm,
let,
it's
let
true.
me raise my hand right now. Ain't no shame in my game.
Mm-hmm,
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
But I think that the thing to do is, if we are having those funny thoughts, that we need to be totally and increasingly aware of the fact that you can pick up the horn and call Miss Cisse or United Therapeutic Services and get some help.
that's right.
If I mean, if you can't pay for it, well, making mental health matters is free anyway. But I mean,
It's
if
not free, it's no cost.
there's no cost, okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's right. Somebody,
It's
paying for
different.
it.
Nothing free.
Mhm,
Ain't nothing.
I
mhm.
stand, Miss Cisse, I stand corrected. Okay. Okay. Now moving
She,
on to
I
United
got the
Therapy
same one.
Services,
Hold on.
Miss Lakeisha. So you can just dive
Okay.
in where you want to as it relates to your services and your thoughts about not only 988 but mental health services.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Habersham and Ms. Galloway for inviting us to be a part of this platform and this discussion. And thank you, Ms. Cisse, for the information that you shared. And to piggyback somewhat off of what Ms. Cisse said, the services that we provide with United Therapeutic Services are pretty similar. We are on our for-profit side, we are contracted with the Department of Health and Human Services, where we do an array of services for families. And when we say families, we're talking about parents and the whole family and the children as well. And one of our biggest components of that are our counseling and mental health services. When we think about mental health, there are a lot of other factors that are centered around that. And a lot of times it comes from negative experiences that children face. It comes from challenges that parents face. There are some parental weaknesses sometimes, resources, self-sufficiency, all those factors sometimes come into play when it comes to suicide, or the thought process of attempting suicide. And so as our way of looking at some preventative measures is we offer the counseling services. We have licensed therapists, master's level clinicians that will work one-on-one with our families that we serve and try to dig deep with them and to address some of those factors which could potentially lead to suicidal tendencies. Also, we offer several workshops that help parents and children with positive coping skills and just some general behavior modification skills. One of the challenges that Macon has is there's a lot of violence that's going on in our community. And although it's termed violence, a lot of that sometimes can have a trickle down effect to suicidal tendencies. And so we were recently awarded one of the Macon Violence Prevention grants. And through that grant, we've implemented the AVA Anti-Violence Academy. And through that academy, we're looking at it, same thing, from a holistic family approach method. With those academies, they're offered twice per month, and we bring the entire family in. And we are equipping those families with the resources and skills that they need to address some of those factors which could potentially lead to suicide. For youth, peer pressure is a huge factor which could lead to it. And so one of the ways that we target that is looking at how to encourage youth and young adults to engage in open dialogue with their parents. A lot of times these youth walk around with so much bottled inside of them. And when they're in school, they're dealing with issues that their parents may not know about. And so as part of these anti-violence academies, one of the concepts that we do in that is each academy, there is a component in there where there are roundtable discussions, open discussions with the youth and their parents. When it comes to the parents, a lot of parents deal with some challenging factors when it comes to their way of communicating with their children. They face hardships with job skills, which, sometimes when there's not enough resources in the home, that could lead to suicidal tendencies. Parents who are feeling like they are not able to adequately raise their children. And so as part of AVA, our goal is to enrich and equip the whole family, because again, these are all things that could potentially lead to suicide. And we are just working really hard and diligently to see how can we get on the forefront of that by addressing some of those issues that could possibly cause that.
I really see the need, Ms. Lakeisha and Ms. Gloria, for us to have a follow-up conversation on this. I mean, we cannot provide too much information to the community as it relates to how this can address many of the problems that we're having. But I want to segue back into the links with Ms. Williams and Ms. Galloway. So this 988 project, so essentially what you're doing with it and the way that the Southern Center and United Therapeutic and the Macon Black Pages can help is to help to spread the word as it relates to that the 988 exists and how you don't have to call 911 or an 800 number. So the major thrust of it is to inform the community.
Yes, sir. And I feel that most agencies that deal with the public, they have heard about this already, but it's our job to get it out to everybody else. We're in essence right now preaching to the choir, but we need to, and we are going to preach to the choir because every member of our group is going to take a brochure about 988 and National Suicide Prevention to their church and to the churches of others. One young lady at the pop-up mental health pop-up gym Saturday with Miss Cece. In fact, I believe it's her granddaughter. is a beautician, and she took us a handful of brochures. She said, I'm gonna take this to the beauty parlor and put it there so that people that come in can get this information. And that's our goal.
Do
And
you have, let me interrupt, do you have
Oh.
plenty of brochures?
yes, as long as we have ink and paper, we have brochures.
Okay, well then, we don't need to end this show without talking about how the community can help and where they can get brochures.
And
things
I
like
will
that.
email you a copy of the brochure. We will email you a copy of the brochure. And we want to thank you for highlighting this important topic. And as you can see, it will spill over into other things that we can talk about that is so important to the community. I've often said, gun violence, that's just another form of suicide. You know, they just don't call it that. But drug addiction, that's slow suicide, you see. So we have to put our heads together because it still takes a village. That's never going to change. And thank you so much for having us.
Well, I thank you all. And then I just kind of want to recap with the minute or so that I have left. We have Miss Gloria Cisse. Raise your hand, Gloria, so they'll know who we're talking about. Southern Center for Choice Theory, which is an organization that is spearheading the Not Free Mental Health Matters initiative in our community. And we also have Miss Lakeisha Smith, is that right?
That's correct.
Lakeisha Smith of United Therapeutic Services, which also is engaged and involved very heavily. What's the name of that program quickly that you're spearheading?
The program is the Anti-Violence Academy, and we were implementing that through a grant from the Macon Violence Prevention. So all of the services for that are absolutely free.
Okay,
And we
what
just
we will
encourage
do
families
is
to come.
we will scroll the numbers on the screen for both of you all organizations. Ms. Galloway, now, what should be the process of getting in touch with the links?
MaconGAlinks.org.
Okay,
www.macongalinks.org.
okay, well, that's very good. And then, Ms. Cisse, you can go ahead and give your number since we got just a little more time, and you too, Ms. Smith, so you get ready.
So our office number is 478-741-1268. And we can also be found at MaconMentalHealthMatters.com.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
Our office number is 478-305-4079. And our web address is UnitedTherapeuticServices.com.
Now, you all, let's keep in mind that September and all the rest of the members in the year is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And y'all heard Ms. Galloway say that it takes a village. Till ain't none of them, that's what my pastor used to say, ain't none of them. Till ain't none of them to help us spread the word that in fact one can call 988 and get some mental health assistance. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Haversham. Having had the pleasure of interviewing these phenomenal ladies who are engaged in a phenomenal initiative that will make a phenomenal difference in our community. Thank you, ladies.
www.makingblackpages.com